Chapter 8, Part 2. Vladimir has just asked the question, and that's why God will punish mankind by a global catastrophe, some kind of fearful judgment? Anastasia responds, quote, God never punishes anyone, and he does not need catastrophes. God is love. But that is the way it was planned from the very beginning, created that way from above. When mankind reaches a specific point, one might say, in its unwillingness to accept the essence of truth, once the elements of darkness manifest in man reach that critical point, in order to avert total self-annihilation, a global catastrophe rushes in, which takes away a great many people's lives and crushes the destructive life support system of artificial creation. The catastrophe serves as a lesson to those who are left alive. Following a catastrophe, there is a window of time in which mankind seems to go through a fearful hell. But it is a hell of their own making. It is those who are left alive that fall into this hell. Then for a while, their children survive as if in a pristine original state, and they eventually reach a stage one could call paradise. Then they fall away again, and it all starts over again in tears. This has been going on for billions of earthly years. Quote, if all this has been inevitably repeating itself for billions of years, what then were you asking God for? Anastasia responds, I wanted to find out how and by what means people could be made wiser without subjecting them to a catastrophe. You see, I have figured out that a catastrophe can be blamed not only on those who do not accept truth, but also on the absence of a sufficiently effective means of making the truth be seen, of making people alert to the truth. I was asking him, capital H, to find such a means, to reveal it, either to me or someone else, to whom I feel is not really important. What is important is that it is there to be seen and that it works, unquote. And what did he tell you? What kind of voice does he have? Quote, nobody can tell what kind of voice he has. His answer takes form, as it were, in man's discovery of a thought spontaneously occurring to himself. After all, he can speak only through his particle that is present in every man, and this particle is already relaying information to every other part of the individual with the help of the rhythm of vibration. Hence, the impression arises that man is doing it all by himself, though man himself can actually do a great deal. After all, man is God's likeness. In each man, there is a tiny particle breathed into him by God right at birth. He has given half of himself to mankind upon the earth, and the forces of darkness try by whatever means they can to prevent this God-reflected particle from acting out its high purpose, to distract man from communicating with it and through it with God. It is much easier to fight with a small particle when it is all alone, especially if it is not connected to the basic force of the universe. Quote, but if these particles unite amongst themselves in bright aspirations, it is much more difficult for the forces of darkness to hinder them. Even if one single particle living in just one single man is in full contact with God, then it is impossible for the forces of darkness to overpower him, to defeat his spirit and mind. That means, I surmised, you appealed to him so that the answer would be given birth in you as to what to say to people and how to say it in order to avert a global catastrophe. Quote, more or less. Quote, and what answer was given birth in you? What words must be spoken? Quote, words, just words alone, pronounced in the usual way, are not sufficient. So many words have been spoken already, yet humanity on the whole continues to move toward its own perdition. You have no doubt heard words to the effect that smoking is bad, that alcohol is bad. And this is repeated by a number of sources, including your own physicians, in the language you best understand, yet you still continue and go on using these substances. You go on doing it without regard for the deterioration in your own health, and even painful sensations will not restrain either you or many other people from these destructive habits. God says to you, you should not do that. And the message reaches you through pain. And it is not just your pain, but his too. And yet you take painkillers galore and go on doing your own thing just as before. Again, you are not interested in thinking about what produces the pain. Quote, and all the other higher truths are known to mankind, but they are not being acted upon. Time after time, they are rejected in favor of momentary, illusory gratifications. It means another way must be revealed to allow them not only to know, but also to feel other kinds of pleasure. Once man has learned of these, he can compare and realize everything for himself. He will unblock access to the God-bestowed particle within him. It is no good simply threatening man with a catastrophe. It is no good simply blaming those who do not accept truth. Everyone who brings the truth to others must understand how needed it is to seek a more perfect method of explaining it. Great-grandfather agreed with me about this. Quote, but that's not what he said. Quote, there was a lot that great-grandfather said that you did not hear. Quote, if you were able to communicate with each other without words, why then did you say the words that I did hear? Quote, wouldn't you consider it offensive if people conversed using foreign words you could not understand, given that they know your language as well? Unquote. Various thoughts ran through my mind. Either I believed everything she tells me or I don't. She herself, of course, believes, and it's not just that she believes, she acts. She takes it all so intensely. Maybe I should try to somehow restrain her enthusiasm. So I tried to dampen her fervor by saying, you know what I think, Anastasia. Maybe you don't need to take it so much to heart and get so stirred up with your demands as you were doing at the cedar tree. Even the blue glow or vapor from the cedar came crushing down on you. Your grandfather and great-grandfather were right to be concerned. It's probably very dangerous. If God has not given the answer to any of his sons as to how to explain everything to people most effectively, that means there is no answer. It means that a global catastrophe is the most effective way of getting his message across. Maybe he's even annoyed with you for poking your nose in too far and will punish you so you won't do it again, just like your grandfather said. Anastasia responds, God is kind. He will not punish.